Welcome back to Turning the Key to Real Estate. I'm your host, Nicholas Fegley.
And Heather Patron-Shook.
Well, everybody, we are back. We've got our fourth of the day. I think this is why Heather wanted to do costume changes throughout the day.
I did. I quit.
Did you do a costume change?
No, I wanted
yet.
to do because I just said forget it. So we decided to wear denim.
Yeah, which was actually by accident.
Yeah. It was only this morning when I was like, oh, good, we're wearing denim.
So still out here in Pittsburgh using this gorgeous studio from Studio Me so that I didn't have to tote any of my shit around, which was lovely.
Wait, this is called Studio Me.
Yes.
Studio Me.
Oh, I thought you were
Me.
thinking it was just Studio You.
No, selfishly, yes, he would only have done that. You're right.
It's the studio name. And we are now being graced by the presence of David Dean. How are you, David?
I'm doing well, thank you. How about both of you?
Well, considering that Nick almost tried to kill us going over a bridge or so, it's okay.
Oh,
Fucking
one of our
Pittsburgh.
many bridges.
Thank you. And they've got 12 fucking exits, every goddamn one of them.
I don't think anybody wants to hear any more about your bridge catastrophes.
You brought it up.
I did. It's totally my fault, but we're good. We rolled in last night at 1:00. Got up this morning. We're down
Technically,
here
we
by
rolled in this morning at 1
This is
o'clock.
true. Back
1 o'clock in the morning.
1 o'clock in the morning. Well, because I
All
had
her fault.
showings until 7:30, so I didn't leave my neck of the woods until 7:30. Didn't get to him till 9:30.
We didn't leave till 10.
So
Yes.
yes, we made it here. Listen, we're here. I can't wait. I'm already. I've had an itinerary. I'm going to get my gluten-free bunt cake across the street. Then we're going to go to the Strip District after we go to Onifer's open house.
Yeah, we have a full evening now when we started out with nothing
Nothing.
for the night.
I have made
really?
plans. Yeah, I have made plans. So
And so, David, I keep talking. So at my house currently, I've got a dining room table full of tasty cakes and chocolate. I bought for my team a popcorn machine, and I really want to have her bring it and set it up because
No.
wouldn't that be nice to have fresh popcorn for the next 3 days?
no, it would not be. Nobody needs the smell of popcorn. Anyway, David,
He's
Tell us
contemplating.
about-
Except the smell of whatever could
Popcorn.
possibly be. I wish we are not going there.
No.
I just.
No.
I'm just saying, if you want fresh popcorn, help me talk her into it.
Oh,
I've
that's
got it.
actually not such a bad idea.
you.
no, it's a bad idea.
It's red
there's
and
so many.
gold.
There's so many reasons it's a bad idea. But anyway, going back to who is David Dean?
Boo-hoo.
What made you get into real estate? Like, how did you
Yeah.
get into? We're trying to
Why?
get everybody like people's histories. Like, what made you?
We're
say,
finding out that nobody was sane with this decision.
it's not true.
Well, I think my story might be a little sane. I guess it started kind of by accident, actually. My ex and I at the time were looking at houses. We were looking to buy a house, and we were working with an agent. And my best friend at the time was a broker from Boston, so he came down and he's like, "Hey, I know you're looking for a house, so why don't we just drive around and see what kind of house you like?" So we're driving around and blah, blah, blah. And I said, "There's my house right there. That's the house. That's the perfect house." He's like, "Oh, okay." So he gets out of his car, walks up to the door, knocks on the door and says, "Hey, have you ever thought about selling your house?" And the lady in the front door says, "As a matter of fact, I have." And he goes, "Really?" He goes, "And as a matter of fact, I am." And he goes, "Oh, well, where's your sign?" She goes, "Well, we just listed it like a day ago with
ABC or whatever. Yeah.
XYZ."
Yeah.
He comes running back over and he says, "You're never going to believe this, but this house was just listed by your agent." And so I went back and I talked to her, and we went through the whole process of buying the house. And her sister was an agent, and she pulled me aside and she said, "David, I think because I had binders and binders of research that I was doing to find the perfect house."
I'm not surprised.
And I had analyzed everything, and she goes, "You would be the best real estate agent." And Marilyn, what was her name? I still think of her every day I get up and go into this business. She since then has passed on, but she inspired me to get into this business, and it was the best decision I ever made.
So where were you before you came into real estate? Because some people have real estate connections. Some people had no connection whatsoever.
I have zero connections. I was a massage therapist and a personal trainer.
Okay, so then, but you were a people person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's no, but that's people. You know,
Yes.
you're interacting with
I
the
had
public.
people skills. I
Yeah.
know where he's going with that, but I had people skills. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And I really had to. I had to.
You
sell
wanted
myself.
to help people. I mean,
wanna
in
help them.
massage therapy and in personal training, you wanted to help people. So that I would say a connection would be that you wanted to help people find homes and things like that. That I can see the connection there, but not in the industry, but in the personality side, I could see that.
Yeah, I didn't have. I had zero experience. Like when I went to my very first class. I was like, oh, wow, oh.
Wait, I just don't point and
I thought
say
it was
these are
just
curtains?
going out to lunch and showing pretty houses. I didn't
Playing golf in the afternoon.
I didn't realize it was like work, like you know,
Right.
and then I realized, oh my goodness, like this is a person's most important investment they'll ever make, and if I screw this up, like oh, and that's what inspired me, but also scared me into learning and becoming the agent that I've become, is that this isn't just a number to them, and it's not just a transaction for me. So
Yeah. I like that because you remember that this is an asset and an investment they can't pick up. They could pick up art, they could pick up jewelry, they can move their stocks, they could do all that. But this is something you actually can't just physically pick up in a house that's, on land that's dug down.
Not anymore.
unless you're Amish,
And yes, well, unless you have, like
License
a
crazy
manufacturer,
short.
I get that too. But at the same token, what's still there is the land. You can't just pick up the land and cart it off with you. So it is an investment. So what year did you get started?
2005.
Okay, so 2005, which that was right at
before.
it was right towards, in the thick of when, interest rates were dropping, housing prices were going up. So then you shortly after was 2008-9, which was you shortly into your career.
Yeah, I was screwed.
Saw the bottom drop and rode that roller coaster straight on down because I was in the market in that time as well. Nicholas doesn't know what that was like, but
Yeah,
it was
I was
interesting.
just graduating high school.
Well, besides that, we also saw you got to see different changes in the industry. I mean, there was a point in time where we wouldn't get buyers' final costs until like an hour before settlement, and things like that. Right. Even if we got them and then they needed more money and it was a scramble, it was truly crazy time. And then we hit the brick wall of 2008-9, and it just was downhill from there. And we went through changes then. We went through Dodd-Frank and the changes in the industry and what you had to do, and we made it out on the other side.
We did.
And same thing with buyer agency in Pennsylvania. We went through that too because you were already into it in 2005, and now here we are in 2024, and now buyer agency is nation, and through our entire nation, and it's still the same. So the industry for you has changed a lot. Nicholas, he still just lives vicariously through all of us and what we've been doing. But
I just say fuck.
Are there
every
any
morning.
other changes in the industry that you've seen that you're like, well, this is a good thing. This is a positive thing that changed in our industry. I mean, I think the internet was a positive thing, but then I also think cell phones are a positive thing and a negative thing.
Well, I think one of the bigger ones that you would laugh at. Of course, we used to get our listings in big books. They would come every week, or every 2 weeks, or every month, and they would have all of the information about the listing. And some people, gracious people, would take them and make a copy of them on the copy machine. Some people wouldn't. Some people were sneaky, and they would go in and rip the
just take
page
it.
out and take it with them, thinking, "Oh, it doesn't matter." I'm thinking, "Well, yeah, it does." And so we would scramble to the office to get that book.
It was a fight.
It was a fight, and literally, I have one of those books. Like
Do you?
Yeah, it was like.
Will you bring it with you next week?
Oh,
Oh,
I
my
gotta see one of
gosh.
those.
and it's just like you go through it and you're like it was just, you can't imagine how. And so when the internet happened, and MLSs went
The
on.
sky was falling.
Photos.
It was like,
Photos.
oh my goodness.
When you could see more than one photo of a house other than the front street picture, if you got that in the book.
But here's the drawback to that. The drawback was when we had the book, we toured like crazy
Right.
because
You
we
had to know
had
the
to know
inventory.
the inventory inside and out. And then once it went online, there was you still toured, but and now that there's virtual, there's almost no reason, in some senses that you would need to actually tour the
Right.
property.
So there's a blessing and a
physically.
curse.
Yeah,
That's a blessing and a curse. It's,
Yes.
it's
So-
great to have so many pictures, but now the caravanning, it was called caravanning back
Oh yeah.
then.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, this was even before the caravan was a thing,
Yeah.
the actual vehicle name. We would all hop in and everybody would go to the sales meeting.
Yep.
Then right after, immediately following the sales meeting, everybody would hop in the cars and you would literally drive from one house to the next house that was in the company's inventory.
Yep.
And that's how you got to learn what was happening. Now, I worked for a smaller firm back then, and my dad's idea of caravanning was for me to go follow the other agents from the other office who were caravanning to see what listings were going to be coming up.
I mean, that
Yeah.
is smart.
that is, hey.
Yeah, that was my dad's idea.
Would you say that there is a piece of technology that has come to our industry that has hindered it?
Yeah, the cell phone.
Because I have one in mind.
Okay.
When you say technology, do you mean actual physical technology,
Ooh.
or do you mean like software or some
Either.
interrupter?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Either.
Yeah, but I can't. It,
That's fine. It's I think cell phone.
It's the fact that we as agents don't have control
Yes.
over our
Correct.
what I call intellectual property.
Yep.
That I think that is one of the things,
have
that
hindered.
has always sort of confounded me. Like I get in my car and I spend the time to list this property. I spend money to have it photographed, the
Floor
whole
plans,
9 yards,
yeah.
and then it goes out, and then it is monetized by everybody
That can.
that
Yeah,
can
once
and
it's-
didn't really have a hand in that monetization. And then it's sold back to me. Then it's like literally said, oh, by the way, hey, we're going to give you your leads, but you have to pay us to get your leads. And so I think that has been the biggest hindrance. Yeah.
So for me, mine is the showing services that are now out there.
Oh, yeah.
That, and I just recently found out about this. I've always been the mentality of I just call another Howard Hanna agent and I go, hey, I need a favor. Can you show this house? I did it for Sunday night because I'll be driving in and I'm got places to go and stuff. So I have a client who came back out of the woodworks and was like, hey, I want to see this. And everything's in line by our agency, pre-approval. Everything's good. So I called one of my agents in another office. I said, hey, can you do this? It's a little too far for me to send one of my agents, but I physically took this client on. You're 10 minutes away from the house. Would you show it? And I'll pay you for it. No problem. And they were like, yeah, I think I can. Have you tried? And said the name of the app. And I'm like, well, let me look it up. So I start looking it up, and literally there are agents that no longer show properties at all. They just put it into this app, and other agents now will just show their client. They never get the same agent. They may get the same agent. They never actually get into the house, and I feel like that is a hinder because I see things when I go through those houses that affect how I
Would you help
recommend with the
some
offers.
negotiations.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that even existed.
See, and
It's a
there are things literally that are happening almost every day in our industry that I'm like, wait, they done what now? Like, what's happening now?
I feel
Yeah.
that's a hinder. It really is because now it's taking you as the agent who is getting paid good money to advise that client. Now you're not in that house.
So there's just our industry is constantly changing and evolving.
Correct.
Constantly. So what advice would you give to a person who's either thinking about or taking classes, a brand new agent? What advice would you give the brand new agent? Or what advice would you give David back then that you know now?
10 years ago, because, you're still young.
Marry well.
Mary.
Yes!
And
Love it!
no, and
But-
I know you think I'm joking, but there is what I'm saying is this: had I known that this industry or that this profession is you're almost guaranteed success by who you know and not what you know.
Okay.
That many times people that I have looked up to or people that I have that do very well in this business have connections that they have acquired through marriage or through family.
Okay.
And that has given them an edge that purely just sending out cards and knocking on doors is simply not going to get you. Had I known that at the time, I might have reconsidered. But I think that's the piece of advice that I would tell folks is that you could be the smartest person in the room and you may not be the most successful real estate agent. That it is sometimes, it can just like it is in anything. I'm not saying this is just only relates to this business.
It's others too, yeah.
It's who you know and not what you know. And it's even more important in this business. And I found, and with the shrinking inventory, it's even more important now.
Understood. And so how is the market in and around Pittsburgh? Because what sections do you deal with or what neighborhoods?
I deal mostly with the urban. I deal mainly in my neck of the woods, which is the north side.
Okay.
And we are so top heavy in that market right now, where we have more high end listings than we have affordable. There is maybe, if we're lucky, there's maybe 15 properties at best under 4.
Wow.
And everything else is
Wow.
4, 5, 7, 8, and it just keeps going up. And then you add the new construction, and that's never going to start at. That's never going to be at 250.
No.
So it's a hard market right now, and I hearken back to the advice that I gave my buyers 5 years ago when I said, if you don't get in this market right now, if you don't buy a house, I don't care what kind of house, if you don't buy a house right now,
You will be priced out.
you will be priced out forever.
Yeah.
And they're coming back and saying, I wish that I had heeded that advice. And I tell people that now,
Right.
buy now. I know it's going to be a struggle because 5 years from now, at the rate that we're going,
You'll be priced out again.
there will be no such thing as a $200,000 anything.
Well, and I look at that because I have the first home my husband and I owned, we still own and rent it out to a independent contractor, photographer, not a real estate agent. And we definitely could have raised the rent by several $100s on this person. But because we know what the struggle is being an independent contractor and working for yourself and owning your own business, we have not raised the rent because what we look at it is we say, it's affordable for her to, be there. And she's still able to work and live and eat, and to gouge the price on her is not going to do any justice because where else is she going to go? Her business is built in the area where we're at. And we thought about it, but what we look at is the rent covers what we need it to cover. So I've often thought about selling the house to her specifically, and it would be at a loss in the market, but part of me would feel better that somebody could have an opportunity to own a home than that because we don't have a lot of affordable housing anymore. I look at these numbers and yes, I'm selling these houses because that's what they're out there and that's what the worth is. It's what the market is doing. But I do look at it and I look at the price like for what my house would be and selling it to somebody else and I'm thinking, wow, the number that they would have to pay because this is what the market is saying it's worth, and then their monthly payments and everything, and then utilities, and then all this other stuff. It absolutely blows my mind.
And now let's look at it a little bit differently, that exact situation, and say Heather actually doesn't have a heart. and you're just looking at the final numbers. There's actually a thought process too as a landlord of keeping the rent the same, now keeping that tenant 20 years instead of a turnover every 2-3
Right.
years is also beneficial. So yes, you're doing it because you guys care about the individual and you guys have big hearts and you want to help people, but also for the ones of you out there that don't, because let's be honest, they're out there, the longevity of having a tenant in the house is huge and a sense of security to you instead of having that 3, 8, 6 months worth between where you can't rent it because nobody wants to pay it or can afford to pay it. Like, I mean, there's something to be said, like, of just let it be. If you've got somebody who can pay it and the bills are getting covered and you're not losing money, let it be.
Well, this particular tenant is now, it's 10 years at this point, is entrenched in the neighborhood. You know, so is a part of the neighborhood, the street, the community, the whole 9 yards. So, you know, that's the type of growth that we want. But I was just working with a buyer who we tried to get into a program in Philadelphia where they're finally taking the land that's in our land bank and now selling them to developers who then develop the properties and then sell the properties to certain, you know, and I mean, I'm amazed. I'm researching this to the umpteenth degree to try and figure out like how is this, like how do we make this possible, get everybody into this.
And we're getting them onto the podcast.
We're working on that. We're working on that. But you're talking about affordable housing in Philadelphia. On my side of the state, same thing. Like there's not a bunch of it. You know, and especially houses like that you can actually knock it into and have to put a ton of money to fix it up.
Yeah.
Well, my father bought his house in 1960, and he bought it for $25,000.
Ooh.
That's the only house we ever lived in. That's the only house he ever lived in. He died in that house. When I sold the house in 2016, we sold it for $137,000. Now, if you notice the appreciation,
Yeah.
Not much, yeah.
It's not much at all.
Right.
However, in the last 5 years, that house has gone up, has sold 3 other times, and the last sale price of that house has almost been $400,000.
Wow.
Now, I'm going to tell you this.
Held it.
I should have held it.
We all lost our crystal balls.
I'm going to say something that is probably a little radical to say, but I'm going to say this.
It's not going to be me for a change.
When my father bought his house, he did not buy the house to be a means of using it as a means of retirement, of funding a vacation, paying for my education or anything. He didn't use it other than just a home to live in and eventually either pass it on or sell it. It never occurred to him that it would be the vehicle to usher him into wealth. Because apparently if he had done that, it simply wouldn't have. At some point, we're going to have to rethink what housing looks like, and we're going to have to rethink what housing means to society. Because unless we can rethink what housing is, we're going to have an ever-growing population that is going to be without that fundamental thing that we call a house. And as I forget his name at PAR, he said to me, David, it's like an asset class. Housing is like an asset class now, and certain people may never get into that asset class because of that. And so I'm saying that until we move away from housing, I know it's going to be radical, as a means for generational wealth, we are going to have a problem with housing. I can't see, I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't see how this is going to continue at the trajectory it is with housing. People saying, well, if you own a house, this is going to be your key to generational wealth. Well, that's a gamble at best. But that is what's causing housing to go up. It's because it's now an asset that people are using to
Leverage.
augment
yeah.
augment what they didn't save or what they don't have. And unfortunately, there's a whole group of people that can't buy into that. And so we have to, I'm saying that we need to rethink what housing looks like in the future, and that's a radical statement. I know I probably should have had that pass through
No.
the upper wings, but I'm convinced that something has to give.
Housing is a basic right. It is something that every human needs to have. You need a shelter to function. You need a shelter so you can go to work. You need a shelter to raise a family. Like, it is very, I do agree with you that it is appalling that there is a generation that is eventually going to not be able to afford. I mean, there's people now that can't afford. There's people now that are living paycheck to paycheck that their money's going towards groceries and gas. They don't have anything left to save to be able to get into that house. There's also, and while we're on radical statements, I'll make it. In my opinion, there's still predatory lending. There's still banks out there that are giving loans at dollar amounts that are pushing the needle, that are setting people up to fail if they're not careful. And not everybody can be that responsible with their money. I've seen it a couple times just this year alone as going through the process, that once they close, I'm actually concerned. I'm concerned of, can you do this? A property I sold last year, 18 months ago, came back on the market because she can't afford the mortgage anymore. I was the listing agent. They bought it from me. Now my client's buying it from them. But it's like 18 months, and we've got to do better. I agree. We need to do better to make sure that everybody can have a shelter, a home.
Well, that's why I'm saying that we need to figure out what is appropriate appreciation. Because at the end of the day, when you buy a house, it shouldn't and you buy it for $200,000, a year and a half or 2 years from now, it shouldn't be $400,000. What financial vehicle could you get that kind of appreciation? So let's just be real. I mean, if there's no other way to do that other than housing, haven't we created the problem with why housing is unaffordable?
Right.
And if we need to step back and figure out ways to tamp that down, I don't know what that looks like, but I'm saying that I don't see us building our way out of it. And I don't know how that's going to look. So,
Yeah.
So
sorry.
What do you
God,
see
no.
as far as, the new, talking about the new agents, you gave some recommendations to them. Where do you see yourself in 5 years in this industry?
Property management.
Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's what I do with my own portfolio.
Right.
But I see, this is newsflash, I see the future of this industry in property management. I'm starting to see a lot of hotel chains starting to build out these communities, and they need managers.
Yes.
And so I see that as you heard it here, if you're starting out in this business, get whatever certifications or education around property management. That's my future for the next 20 years.
Oh, well, and that's a good branch, because it's you often hear agents like, oh, selling houses, doing this. That's the investment side, and managing other people's investments as well as your own.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's one-offs or 10, 15 units or whatever, how many units, or like a hotel chain in that side of things. That's actually a good segue for agents to understand that when you get your real estate license in Pennsylvania, it's not just for residential. You could, once you get your license, you kind of figure out where your niche is, and you go from there as to where, you work best. And some agents go towards the residential side. There's commercial, there's industrial, there's property management, there's rental side of things. There's all sorts of different developments, condos, HOAs, all those things. That's a market that I think first of all, I'll be completely honest with you. Property management, in my opinion, takes a certain person to be able to handle it.
It does.
It really honestly does, because it's OPP, other people's properties, OPP, other people's problems. You know, you're taking
You're
on
the one getting the calls.
Well, you are getting the calls.
Yes.
You really are, but it takes a special person, because you also do get those phone calls of, I just lost my job, my family member just passed away, I don't have the rent this month. And again, you've got to have the stomach to be able to say to them, I really, I'm really sorry for that. I can be very compassionate, empathetic to you for that, but I still got to pay the mortgage
The bill's
for this.
got to get paid.
Correct. And you're dealing with the leaks and the overflows and all those things. It takes a special person to be able to handle that and be able to juggle all those balls at the same time, because you have the tenant and then you have the landlord, and you're kind of in the middle between the two parties, and you need to negotiate that side of things, on more of a daily basis, because you also have possession has been given up. The tenant has possession of the property, but the landlord owns it. So
And
those
township have
townships
laws
rules and
states
different townships, different boroughs, different counties.
You got to know all that.
You do. It's a whole different. So for those who are listening to our podcast and you're not sure what division of real estate you might want to get into, property management is, much like the appraisal side, it is definitely something that's not out on the forefront. Like the appraisers, we need more appraisers, but we also don't have a ton of property management. It's not the sexy, glorified, there's no TV show about property management.
The property managers of Rodeo Drive.
Exactly. There's no
She doesn't know what Selling Sunset
I
is.
don't know what Selling Sunset. I don't. I will start watching. I promise you, I will start watching Selling Sunset.
I told her,
and I'll
said
report back.
it's just basically drama. But go watch. Oh, who said it best? It's the Housewives meets real estate.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It
it's
is.
Brian. Yeah.
Yes.
But okay, so I will promise to watch it. But
And there's a lot of silicone.
Property management is definitely a division of real estate that does take a special person to be able to handle it, and to be able to manage the backside of it. So I'm actually kind of excited to hear about your next 5 years, and beyond, actually, to you, like next 20 years.
Well, that's
And he will keep in touch.
Yeah,
even when he gets too big for his britches, he'll keep in touch with us.
Well,
we're not going to let him go. That's the whole problem.
Kidnapping's an option.
But no, I say that to people all the time, like that is an option. But what is, and you said it, I think what you said was, you said a little line that was very important.
Just a little line of that.
It's
okay. Story of my life.
Still borrowing from Brock. This industry is growing so rapidly and changing. It isn't our mother's industry anymore. There is so much you have to learn. There is so much you have to. This is not a part-time gig anymore. This is, if you're going to do it, then do it 100% or don't do it at all.
Right.
Thank you.
And because you're not doing anybody any favors by doing it 50%.
Right.
And I think the education, and I think the way that the market keeps changing, I think that's what is so difficult for folks when they think, because let's face it, I mean, for a while, this industry was kind of the career of last resort.
Well,
I couldn't do this, so
I got
tried
my real
everything else.
estate
So
license.
hey, I saw on TV they
No, really.
made $1 million selling a house in 30 minutes. I can do this, and so you're like, no, that's not even a thing. But
It's not. Yeah.
but that's what they think.
Well, people don't realize what we do, and the blood, sweat, and tears, and I mean, I can tell you the amount of times I've cleaned somebody's house for them to make it look better, so that way we could sell the house.
Did you guys see my post on Facebook?
No, I don't watch you.
Where my July to August cell phone usage, 95 hours on the phone in a month.
95.
That's just
that's it.
Phone.
Wait,
That's not including email.
are you saying 95 hours?
95.
Or you mean 95%?
No.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we need better
have
numbers,
to
because
look at it again.
95
Yeah,
is.
90
I could do that, and I could do that in like
950
3 days.
hours a week is
Yeah,
what it was. But it was an astronomical amount just on the phone. I can't track email. You can't track being out on showings. Like, you lose true track of time in this industry
Oh, yeah.
if
Oh,
you're
yeah.
doing it right.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, David, thank you so
Thanks
much
so
for
much
coming
for coming.
in.
You're welcome.
And hanging out with
Pleasure.
us today in your own hometown.
I know. Like I said, I've never even heard of
Yeah.
Me Studios.
I know,
was
it's
Studio Me.
like,
Studio Me.
Studio Me.
Studio
Yep,
Me.
I
Heather
know.
found this because the plan was like I was
just
gonna
gonna roll
steal
in.
somebody's office up here,
Yeah.
set everything up, and then we were just gonna hang out there like we are here all day.
This is so cool.
And
I know,
she
isn't it
found
great?
this, and honestly, it's a fair price.
Yeah.
You can, if you want to, have an assistant sit back there and run everything, or you can just do it yourself.
They have different rooms,
have
different things.
3
We're giving
different
we're giving a
rooms.
plug. Studio Me.
Yeah.
If you're ever
Yeah.
in Pittsburgh,
Very
you want to
pleased
do
with them so far.
podcasts, you want to do meet. This is a great place.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, great staff to work with. They've been nothing but absolutely a pleasure.
Friendly and nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unlike me.
They're ready to help. Yeah, well, that's true.
Well, everybody, that was another episode of Turning the Key to Real Estate. I am your host, Nicholas Fegley.
And Heather Patron Shook.
Don't forget to like, follow, share for more great content like this today.